I've always believed that silence has a personality of its own, sometimes comforting, sometimes unsettling. That evening, when the storm clouds rolled in over Maplewood Lane and the house settled into an uneasy stillness, I sensed it immediately, the kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something to happen. It was just me and my younger brother, Ethan, alone in the house, a rare occurrence that already felt slightly off balance. Ethan was sprawled across the living room couch, scrolling through his phone with the half-focused expression only a 15-year-old could pull off. I watched him for a moment longer than usual, studying the way he raised one eyebrow when something surprised him, the way he always tugged at his hoodie sleeve when he felt nervous. He had grown up so fast, but in moments like this, I could still see the kid who used to follow me around with a plastic sword and ask endless questions about everything. I stood near the hallway, staring at the door to Dad's old office. That door had been a fixture of our childhood, a boundary we never crossed, a command we didn't dare question. Dad wasn't a strict man, but when it came to that room, his tone changed. It became firm, final. "Some things aren't meant to be touched," he'd say. And we listened. But as I watched the door now, something shifted in me. Maybe it was the tension in the air, maybe it was the storm rumbling just beyond the walls, or maybe it was the gnawing feeling I'd been carrying for months, the slow, sinking suspicion that our family wasn't as solid as it seemed. "Ethan," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. He glanced up. "Yeah." I nodded toward the office door. "Let's go in." He blinked, lifting his head fully this time. "Into Dad's office?" "Why?" I hesitated, but only for a breath. "Because I think there's something we're not supposed to see. Something important." Ethan sat up, uncertainty flickering across his face. He wasn't afraid of breaking rules, he just wanted to know why. That was one thing I loved about him. He questioned everything, even me. "Do you know what you're looking for?" he asked. "No," I admitted. "But I know something's been off. Mom's acting different. Dad too. Like they're sharing a secret we're not part of." Ethan's expression hardened in a way I didn't expect. "I've felt that too." His honesty surprised me, but it also strengthened my resolve. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one sensing the cracks. We were both standing on the edges of a truth neither of us fully understood. A sharp roll of thunder shook the windows. Ethan stood from the couch. "Okay," he said, swallowing. "Let's do it." And just like that, we walked toward the one door that had shaped our entire childhood, unaware that on the other side of it waited a truth powerful enough to change the way we saw our family forever. The hallway felt narrower as Ethan and I approached Dad's office, like the walls were gently pushing us forward. The door, usually nothing more than a slab of polished wood, now carried a weight I couldn't ignore. I hesitated with my hand hovering over the doorknob, suddenly aware of how young we both still were, how unprepared we might be for whatever waited on the other side. "Want me to open it?" Ethan asked. His voice was steady, but not fearless. He wasn't challenging me, he was offering to share the responsibility. That small detail tightened something in my chest. For years, I had thought of him as the kid I needed to protect. Now, standing in front of this sealed-off piece of our father's life, he felt more like a partner. "No," I said, closing my hand around the cool metal. "I've got it." The door opened with a soft groan, like the room itself was waking up after a long sleep. Dust motes drifted through the air, shimmering in the muted light from the single window. Everything inside looked frozen in time: stacks of papers, overfilled bookshelves, a worn leather chair pushed neatly under the desk. It was exactly what I expected, yet the tension in my spine only grew. Ethan stepped in behind me. "It's normal," he whispered, almost disappointed. "Normal doesn't explain why he kept us out," I replied. I moved toward the desk, noticing how meticulously everything was arranged. Dad wasn't obsessive, but he was deliberate. He liked order. But this room, this sealed, untouched space, felt like control taken too far. A framed photo sat off to the side. Mom, younger, her smile bright. Dad beside her, hand around her waist. They looked happy. Whole. Like a couple who hadn't yet learned how fragile trust could be. Ethan picked up a notebook from the shelf. "Do you think there's something bad in here?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I scanned the room again, searching for something that felt out of place, something that didn't fit the careful facade Dad curated. That depends on your definition of bad, I finally said. Ethan swallowed, closing the notebook. I just don't get why Mom's been so quiet lately. It's like she's avoiding him. Avoiding us. His words hit a deeper place inside me. Because he was right. Mom's silence had become its own language, one I didn't understand but couldn't ignore. There's a reason, I said. We just don't know it yet. Ethan looked around, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. So how do we find it? I approached the filing cabinet tucked into the corner, a piece of furniture so unremarkable it should have blended into the background. But something about it drew me in. The top drawer was slightly misaligned, as if it had been opened recently and closed in a hurry. I rested my hand on it. This, I said quietly. We start here. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world outside the room seemed to fade, leaving only the soft hum of the storm and the rapid beat of my own pulse. Then I pulled the drawer open. What I saw inside was the first undeniable sign that our family's story was not what we had believed. And it was only the beginning. Logan spent most of the afternoon pretending everything was normal, but the tension in the house clung to the walls like a shadow. Every time Mia crossed the living room, he tracked her with quiet eyes, studying her, measuring her mood, trying to understand why she had been so strangely distant since the morning. She felt it too, an unspoken weight pressed between them, growing heavier each hour. By sunset, the house had settled into an uneasy calm. The ticking clock in the hallway felt louder than usual, marking each second with sharp precision. Mia stood at the kitchen counter, absent-mindedly running her thumb along the rim of a glass. She wasn't sure whether she was trying to calm her nerves or gather the courage to address the storm building inside her. Logan stepped into the doorway. You've barely said a word since lunch, he said gently, his voice low but steady. Did I do something? The directness of the question caught her off guard. She had expected him to ignore the tension, to give her time, but Logan wasn't that kind of person. He was patient, yes, but he was also honest, and he didn't hide behind silence. Mia turned, her expression composed but unreadable. It's not you, she replied. Not exactly. Then what is it? She hesitated, struggling with the uncertainty she had been holding back. The truth was, their earlier conversation, short, simple, almost meaningless, had opened a door she had tried to keep locked. A door to questions about trust, responsibility, and the shifting dynamic between them. We're supposed to look out for each other, Mia finally said. But today, I don't know. Something felt off. Logan stepped closer, his brow tightening. I'm trying, Mia. You know I am. She searched his face, looking for any sign of defensiveness or frustration. There was none, only sincerity, soft and steady. And that sincerity was exactly what made her chest tighten with confusion. She didn't want to push him away, but she also couldn't ignore the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something fragile. I know you are, she said quietly. But things are changing. And we can't pretend they aren't. Logan exhaled slowly, a mix of relief and uncertainty. Then, talk to me. Tell me what you need from me. Mia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, to let the silence settle in a way that didn't feel hostile. The fading orange light from the window spilled across the floor, creating a warm glow that softened the tension. It reminded her that conflict didn't always have to lead to distance, sometimes it led to clarity. Let's just start by being honest, she said. With each other. No holding back. Logan nodded. Deal. It wasn't a full resolution, but it was a step, small, delicate, and necessary. And as the first stars appeared outside, Mia realized the real conflict wasn't between them. It was within her, waiting to be unraveled. A beginning, not an end. The next morning arrived with a quiet chill, the kind that hinted at a change in the weather and something else Mia couldn't quite name. She woke earlier than usual, her thoughts still tangled from the conversation she and Logan had barely begun to unravel. She sat at the edge of her bed, rubbing her palms together as if trying to warm a truth she wasn't ready to touch. Downstairs, she found Logan already in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling through something on his phone, the though his stiff posture made it clear his attention wasn't on the screen. The moment he heard her footsteps, he set the phone aside with deliberate calm. "Morning," he said, offering a cautious smile. Mia returned a quiet nod. "Morning." An awkward pause followed, light, but noticeable. They had agreed to be honest with each other, yet neither seemed ready to take the first step. Logan cleared his throat and reached for a mug, offering it to her without a word. It was a simple gesture, but it carried a sincerity that eased some of the tightness in her chest. "Thanks," she murmured. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, steam rising from their mugs. Mia studied him over the rim of her cup. Logan wasn't usually this still. He was the type who filled silence with motion, tapping a pen, shifting his weight, drumming his fingers. But now he seemed anchored, as if waiting for her to speak before he allowed himself to breathe. "I've been thinking," she said finally. His gaze lifted immediately. "About yesterday?" "About everything," she corrected. "About us. About the way things are changing." Logan rested his hands flat on the table. "I want to understand, Mia. But I need you to give me something to work with." She appreciated his directness. It steadied her. "It's not that I don't trust you," she said. "It's more. I'm trying to figure out how to trust myself." That caught him off guard. His expression softened, the tension in his shoulders easing. "You're harder on yourself than anyone I know." "Maybe," she admitted. "But lately, I feel like every decision I make affects more than just me. And I don't want to mess things up." "You won't," he said firmly, leaning forward. "You just won't." His conviction was so immediate, so unwavering, that Mia felt something inside her shift, not resolved, not solved, but nudged forward. She didn't answer right away, letting his words settle into the quiet spaces between them. A soft knock at the front door broke the moment, startling them both. Mia and Logan exchanged a look, curiosity, uncertainty, and the sharp awareness that whatever waited on the other side could tilt their day in a direction neither expected. Logan stood first. "I'll get it," he said. And as he stepped toward the door, Mia felt the familiar pull of a story that was just beginning to unravel. Logan paused with his hand on the doorknob, sensing Mia's eyes on him from across the room. The quiet thrum of uncertainty sharpened the air. For a strange moment, the knock felt like an interruption not just to their morning, but to the delicate understanding they had begun shaping between them. He pulled the door open. On the porch stood Evan Walker, Logan's longtime friend, sharp-jawed, energetic, and usually wearing a grin loud enough to fill a room. But today, Evan looked different. His smile was thinner, controlled, and his gaze flicked past Logan's shoulder almost immediately, searching for Mia. "Hey," Evan said, his voice unusually measured. "Didn't mean to drop by so early." Logan stepped aside to let him in. "What's up? Everything okay?" Evan nodded once but didn't answer right away. Instead, he gave Mia a small, polite smile. "Morning, Mia." She returned a subtle nod. "Morning, Evan." Evan lingered near the entryway, shifting his weight as if trying to decide how much to say or whether to say anything at all. Logan noticed immediately, Evan wasn't the type to hesitate unless something weighed on him. "What's going on?" Logan asked again, firmer this time. Evan exhaled, glanced at Mia, then back at Logan. "I didn't want to text this. I thought you should hear it in person." Mia felt the tension coil tighter in her stomach. Whatever Evan brought with him wasn't casual, she could feel it in the way Logan suddenly stood straighter, bracing himself. Evan ran a hand through his hair. "There's been talk," he said quietly. "About you too. About yesterday." Mia's breath caught. "Talk from who?" "A couple people who were around," he replied carefully. "Someone saw you leaving together. Someone else mentioned the argument last week. You know how fast things spread around town." Logan's jaw tightened. "Rumors," he muttered. "That's all it ever is." "Maybe," Evan agreed. "But you two need to be ready for it. People are putting pieces together that don't belong together." Mia felt heat rise behind her ribs, not anger, not fear, but a mix of both. She had worked so hard to keep her life steady, predictable, manageable. Now, the idea of whispers swirling outside her control made something inside her clench. Logan stepped closer to her, subtle but protective. "We're not doing anything wrong," he said. "I know that," Evan replied quickly. "But not everyone does. And some people don't care about what's true, they care about whatever makes a better story." Silence followed, heavy and unwelcoming. Mia stared at the floor, her thoughts spiraling. Their quiet morning, their fragile steps toward honesty, it all suddenly felt exposed, as if the walls of the house were thinner than she ever realized. Finally, she lifted her eyes. "So what are they saying?" "Exactly." Evan hesitated, then answered with a gravity that confirmed their fears. "That you two are hiding something." The words landed with a weight that changed the room. Logan glanced at Mia, and she saw in his expression the beginning of a decision, a choice that could define everything going forward. A line had been drawn, and there was no going back. Mia felt the room tilt, not physically but emotionally, as Evan's words settled between them. "Hiding something." The phrase echoed with dangerous clarity, as if spoken louder than it truly had been. She straightened her posture, trying to steady herself before her thoughts spiraled into every worst-case scenario. Logan reacted first. "Let them talk," he said, though the tension in his jaw betrayed the calmness he was trying to project. "People will get bored and move on." Evan shook his head. "Not this time. The story's changing shape. And once that happens, it's harder to shake off." Mia forced herself to breathe. Her instinct wasn't anger, it was caution. She had lived long enough to know rumors didn't need truth to do damage. They just needed momentum. "So what exactly do they think we're hiding?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Evan hesitated, weighing his words. "They think there's something personal between you two. Something you haven't said out loud." Mia looked at Logan immediately, searching his expression for any flicker of discomfort. Instead, she found something else: resolve, sharp and unyielding. "Then we don't feed it," Logan said firmly. "We stay focused. We don't let other people decide what our story is." His certainty grounded her, but it also raised a question she wasn't sure she wanted to face. What exactly was their story? The boundaries between them had shifted, blurred, and tightened in ways that felt both natural and unsettling. And now the outside world seemed determined to force clarity before either of them was ready. Evan stepped farther inside, lowering his voice. "I'm telling you because I figured you'd rather hear it from me. But you two need to be on the same page, whatever that page is." Mia felt a slow heat rise in her chest, not embarrassment, not guilt, but something sharper. Determination. "Thank you," she said. "Really. But we'll handle it." Evan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Just be careful. Small towns have long memories." With that, he offered a brief, uneasy smile and let himself out. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the house unnervingly quiet. Logan exhaled, pressing his palms against the back of a chair. "Well, that's something." Mia folded her arms, her mind churning. "We can't ignore this. If people already think we're hiding something, they'll twist anything we do." "Then we'll be transparent," Logan said. "Honest. With each other first." "That's what we agreed on." She searched his face again, looking for a hint of doubt. There was none. And that unwavering steadiness, his instinct to protect, to anchor them both, pulled her somewhere she didn't want to name yet. "Logan," she said quietly, "what if this becomes bigger than we can control?" He stepped closer, his voice low but certain. "Then we face it. Together." The word lingered. Together. And for the first time, Mia wasn't sure if the conflict was the rumors outside or the truth she was starting to feel inside. A truth she could no longer outrun. The afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, casting long, thin stripes across the living room floor. Mia sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands folded tightly in her lap, while Logan stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the quiet street below. The earlier tension with Evan lingered, a weight neither of them could shake. "You know," Mia said finally, breaking the silence, "rumors don't just go away because you ignore them." Her voice was calm, but each word carried the edge of frustration she had kept buried. Logan didn't turn immediately. "I know," he said after a moment, his tone measured. "That's why we handle this together. Not by hiding, not by pretending. She studied him, trying to read the steadiness in his gaze. He looked like he always had, confident, unflinching, but she knew better. She had seen him waver before, seen the moments when the weight of responsibility threatened to tip him over. And right now, she suspected the burden of what Evan had said had left its mark, even if he didn't show it. What if they're right? She asked quietly. What if people do see us the wrong way? What if, her voice trailed off, the fear she hadn't admitted even to herself finally surfacing. Logan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then we set the record straight. Not by arguing, not by explaining to everyone, but by showing the truth in how we live. Together. Like I said before. She nodded, swallowing a lump in her throat. His words should have been reassuring, but the clarity in his conviction made her own uncertainty sharper. They weren't just facing rumors, they were standing at the edge of public perception, knowing one small misstep could spiral into misunderstanding. A sudden ping from Logan's phone interrupted them. He glanced down and frowned at the message. Evan sent another update, he muttered. Apparently, someone's already spreading stories about our supposed secret. Mia's stomach tightened. How fast does news travel in this town? Faster than you'd think, Logan admitted. He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled sharply. But we can't control that. We can only control us. She looked down at her hands, feeling the tremor of frustration and fear slowly mix with something else, resolve. She realized that whatever came next, they had to act as one. Alone, they might crumble under scrutiny. Together, they had a chance to navigate the storm. Mia finally lifted her head and met Logan's eyes. Okay, she said. We do this together. He nodded once, firmly, a silent promise in his expression. No matter what. The quiet hum of the house returned, but it was different now, charged with anticipation, a tension that wasn't just fear, but preparation. Outside, the street lay empty, but inside, Mia felt the first flicker of readiness. Rumors could try to dictate their story, but they had chosen their own path. And standing side by side with Logan, she understood that whatever came next, they would face it as one. A door had closed behind uncertainty, and another had opened, leading straight into the heart of whatever truth was waiting for them. Evening arrived slowly, the fading light softening the edges of the living room, but it did nothing to ease the tension between Mia and Logan. They had spent the day in careful, measured conversation, strategizing, and yet a quiet unease clung to them both. The earlier news from Evan had stirred a storm that no amount of planning could fully calm. Mia sat cross-legged on the floor, a notebook open beside her, scribbling thoughts she couldn't yet speak aloud. Logan moved from the couch to the window, tracing the pattern of the shadows cast by the streetlights outside. Every few seconds, his gaze returned to her, a subtle check-in, a reminder that they weren't facing this alone. I keep thinking, Mia began, her voice tentative, what happens if they misinterpret something? Even if we're honest, people see what they want to see. Logan exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. We can't control perception, he said, only reality. And the reality is us, together, dealing with this the right way. Mia looked up, studying the set of his jaw, the way his eyes held her attention. There was a determination there that felt almost unshakable, but she sensed the undercurrent of pressure, the silent acknowledgement that this wasn't just a story, they were navigating a test of trust, perception, and patience. You always make it sound so simple, she muttered, half smiling, but the anxiety in her voice didn't fully vanish. It's not simple, he admitted. But we can make it manageable. Step by step. Truth by truth. Her fingers tapped against the notebook as she considered his words. Step by step. Truth by truth. It was a methodical approach, almost clinical, but necessary. There was no room for panic, not if they wanted to preserve the fragile sense of control they still held. A sudden knock on the front door made both of them jump. Mia's heart quickened. They exchanged a glance, unspoken questions lingering in the air. Logan went to answer, his hand steady but his posture alert. Standing outside was Evan, again, holding a small envelope. His expression was tight, serious. I thought you should see this immediately, he said, handing it over without preamble. Mia took the envelope, feeling its weight in her hands. The handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp, official. She exchanged a look with Logan, who nodded, his hand brushing briefly against hers, a grounding gesture that made the storm outside feel slightly more distant. This could change everything, she whispered. Logan's gaze met hers. Then we face it together, he said. His voice carried the same steady conviction as always, the promise of solidarity that made her chest tighten with both fear and reassurance. She exhaled, letting the tension ebb slightly, and opened the envelope. What lay inside wasn't just a letter, it was the next step in a series of revelations neither of them had expected. And as the contents unfolded, Mia realized the evening wasn't just about rumors or perception anymore, it was about confronting a truth that would redefine everything. The door to the next chapter had opened. The envelope felt heavier than its size suggested. Mia's fingers trembled slightly as she carefully pulled out its contents, a single sheet of paper, crisp and official-looking, the kind of document that demanded attention. Logan leaned closer, his eyes narrowing as he read over her shoulder, his hand brushing hers ever so lightly, a silent tether against the rising tension. "It's from work," Mia murmured, her voice tight. "But it doesn't make sense." Logan scanned the paper quickly, noting the signature and the date. "This is recent," he said. "And it's directed to your mom." Mia's stomach dropped. Her mother's name printed in bold ink, followed by words that carried a weight neither of them were prepared for. The language was formal, almost detached, yet beneath it lay a tremor of consequence. A confrontation, a hidden choice, a truth they hadn't yet faced. "Why would she hide this from us?" Mia whispered, her mind racing. "Why not tell anyone in the family?" "Some things people keep to themselves," Logan said slowly, carefully. "Maybe she was trying to protect you, or maybe herself." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the uncertainty he was carefully containing. Mia's mind spun. Protect her. The thought made sense in a way that was almost suffocating. If Mom had carried something like this alone, had held it close to shield them, the ripple effect of her silence now landed squarely on their shoulders. "What do we do?" Mia asked finally, her words small, almost fragile. Logan's gaze hardened, thoughtful. "We don't react blindly. We need to understand it first. Every detail. Every implication. Then we decide together how to handle it." Mia nodded, inhaling slowly. The calm in his voice anchored her frayed nerves. But even as she nodded, a flicker of unease gnawed at her, a fear that the truth they were about to uncover might unravel everything they had relied on. A distant rumble of thunder echoed outside, a reminder that the storm, both literal and metaphorical, had not yet passed. Mia folded the letter carefully, her hands lingering on the paper, memorizing its weight, its texture, as if physically holding onto the courage she needed. Logan reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Whatever this is," he said, his voice low, certain, "we face it together. No running, no hiding. Just honesty." Mia's eyes met his, searching for doubt, but found none. The steady conviction in Logan's gaze sparked a small flame of courage inside her. The storm outside intensified, lightning flickering against the windowpane. Inside, the room felt charged, as if the air itself anticipated the revelation to come. Mia exhaled, a mixture of fear and resolve threading through her chest. She knew that once they opened this door fully, nothing would be the same. Yet there was no turning back. Because some truths, once revealed, demand to be faced. And Mia and Logan were standing right at that threshold. Mia unfolded the letter slowly, her fingers trembling as if the act itself could break her. The words leapt off the page, formal and precise, yet carrying an undercurrent of betrayal and secrecy. Logan hovered beside her, his hand brushing hers lightly, a silent promise that whatever came next, they would confront it together. It's not what I expected," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. Her eyes scanned the lines again, seeking clarity in what felt like chaos. Logan nodded, his expression serious. "It's a lot," he admitted. "But we need to process it before we react. Every detail matters." Mia's thoughts spun, memories colliding with new understanding. For months, she had felt a subtle shift in her family, moments of quiet tension, hurried explanations, glances that lingered too long. And now, the truth was before her, undeniable and precise. "Mom, she knew all this and didn't tell us?" Mia's voice cracked with a mix of hurt and disbelief. "She probably thought she was protecting us," Logan said softly, his hand tightening on hers. "Sometimes adults make choices that don't make sense to anyone else. It doesn't mean it's malicious." Mia exhaled, trying to steady the mix of anger, confusion, and compassion that churned inside her. The storm outside mirrored her emotions, lightning flashing, thunder rumbling, rain pattering against the window. It felt like the house itself held its breath, waiting for her next move. "I don't even know how to feel," she admitted, lowering her gaze. "I feel betrayed, but also, I don't know, protective. It's all tangled." Logan squeezed her hand. "It's okay to feel all of it. But remember, we face it together. Not just the truth of the letter, but what it means for us. And what we choose to do next." Mia met his gaze, searching for doubt, but found none. His eyes reflected the same determination that had carried them through the storm of whispers, rumors, and uncertainty. For the first time that day, she felt the steady pulse of resolve threading through her chest. "Okay," she said, her voice firmer now. "We deal with it. Together. No matter what it reveals." Logan nodded, relief softening his features. "Exactly." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the revelation settling around them. And yet, in that quiet, a subtle shift occurred. The fear of exposure, the sting of secrecy, it all seemed smaller in the presence of shared courage. Mia folded the letter carefully, placing it on the table. She drew a deep breath, feeling the storm outside begin to ebb, the rain softening against the windows. "This changes everything," she said quietly, almost to herself. Logan smiled, faint but real. "It does. But sometimes change is what leads us to the truth we've been avoiding all along." Mia nodded, letting the words sink in. For the first time, she understood that the path forward wasn't about denial or hiding, it was about confronting the shadows that had lingered too long. And as the last flashes of lightning faded, she felt a strange calm settle over her. The truth was out there, waiting.